Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Jeremy Beaman. Jeremy, we have a new Republican majority in the House. That's going to affect energy policy to some degree. What's their energy agenda going to be?
Well, they want to do a 180, as you can expect from the last Congress. So Republicans are taking over some key committees with their majority in Congress, including the Natural Resources Committee and Energy and Commerce. And basically, their priorities are going to be to call Biden administration officials in and have them answer to their policies during the last Congress, during the last 2 years, especially in House Natural Resources. One issue Republicans really had the last 2 years have been the Biden administration's oil and gas leasing policies on federal lands. That's in natural resources jurisdiction. And the new chairman, Bruce Westerman, told me that they're going to have Deb Haaland, the secretary, in and others in to talk about why they sort of have taken this direction with oil and gas leasing. And when Biden took office, he instituted a pause on all new leasing. That was later overturned in court, and leasing has since picked up, including because of the Inflation Reduction Act, Democrats' reconciliation bill that had some leasing provisions in it, thanks to Joe Manchin. But Westerman really emphasized that what they want to see is a change of course on leasing, and they also want to emphasize mining legislation to help facilitate more domestic mining for critical minerals, copper, nickel, those kind of things, these inputs that need to go in EV batteries and other things that the Democrats want to help sort of bolster for their green agenda.
There's a limit, though, to what Republicans can do, right? Because they don't have the White House and they still don't have the Senate.
Right. Yeah, and one thing Westerman said shortly after they won the majority last year in November was basically half of what we can do is try to pass good policies, and the other half is to stop bad policies, to stop the Biden administration and what Democrats want to do in Congress. And so I think you will see the House and Senate obviously moving in a different direction through much of this year on energy policy.
So one thing the Biden administration would like to do is do some refilling of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Obviously, they had to tap it because of the high gas prices. They've claimed a lot of credit with that being a factor in reducing gas prices. What are they doing? What's sort of the status of that now?
Well, so in early or mid-December, the Department of Energy, which oversees the stockpile, came out and said, hey, we want to refill the reserve now. They had said earlier, we want to try this new approach where we offer fixed price contracts to basically oil and gas to oil producers, so that they could know, hey, we can sell our oil at this particular price. It's sort of a novel mechanism by which DOE wanted to start acquiring crude oil. Remember, when they sold a lot of this oil on an emergency basis, oil was in the $90 range, and if you look at those bids, that's what they sold it for. And so they would be making a lot of money if they were able to refill it at this level. Right now it's in the sort of the upper 70s, but this is sort of the problem the administration's been having is the benchmark that they set for themselves to resell it was when the market hits about $70 and sustains that way. Well, when they announced their solicitation, it was around then, but it's since shot back up. And DOE hasn't said that this yet, but there has been reporting that they rejected all the offers because they were considered highballed or something. And so we're seeing this tension between what the administration wants a deal, but they want to refill the reserves too, which are about 40% lower than when Biden took office. So it looks they're having trouble so far with their initial plan.
Where do foreign governments come into this? I mean, is there any tie-in with China? Is there any in terms of our energy competition elsewhere? How does that come into play?
Well, it's sort of an extension of the topic of what Republicans want to do. There are a few bills that they sort of fast-tracked so far. In these few days they've been in leadership in the House. One of them was a bill from Kathy Morris Rogers. She's the chair of Energy and Commerce in the House, to ban sales of crude oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China. Now, this is an issue that sort of propped up last summer when news broke that the Chinese were getting some of the oil that was sold from the reserve. And this has happened for years. Chinese buyers have bought SPR crude oil in previous sales earlier during the Biden administration, before this these emergency sales, and in the Trump administration. And other foreign buyers too, or at least buyers with foreign parents.
Right.
Australian companies, French companies, Italian companies, Australia, but Saudi companies have acquired some of our oil from the SPR. And you know, in the past, it hasn't been so much of an issue, but with the increasing sort of hawkishness toward China, when this happened last summer, you know, Republicans and Democrats too, in both chambers, introduced legislation to put it to an end. And this is something that that Republicans elevated during the early days of this Congress. I think in part to sort of remind people that where they stand on the SPR, and of course to double down, for lack of a better word, on China, competition with China.
As you mentioned, it is a Republican-led issue, and it took Republicans taking control of the House for this to pass. But it did get a lot of Democratic votes.
A lot of Democratic votes, and like I said, there were proposals in the last Congress to do this on both sides of the aisle. There were a couple bipartisan bills then too. So there were some members on the Democratic side who wanted to go further and ban sales to Russia. And China, or Russia, and Venezuela, and other countries that are under U.S. sanction. It's not quite clear to me why Republicans didn't go further. It could be that this bill was already in the ether, but that's where things turned out, and it plays into this geopolitical competition that is sort of being played into it. It's such a
going to be
political issue now,
a defining,
on all kinds of issues, especially energy and other things.
Yeah, Speaker McCarthy seems to want that, though, to be one of the defining aspects of the Republican majority.
The China thing.
The China competition.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Westerman emphasized too. You know, China has a lock on the clean energy sector, from everything from making solar modules and EV batteries and the refining of minerals, all these things. You know, you look at their percentages of market share, and they're in the 90s for most of these sectors. So that's another thing Westerman emphasized. We want to be more competitive with China and to make these things here. And in the case of the SPR, to not sell them our oil.
That would seem like something maybe people wouldn't want to do right now.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You can read Jeremy and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.